Hey everybody, looks like we're live. Oh, this is getting to be a much easier platform than what we've used than doing Facebook Live. I like this so much better. So it looks like we do have people joining us, which is really great. This is just going to be a general Q&A. I don't know if we've gone through and if we've answered all the other all the other questions yet. So I can go ahead and check those if we don't have questions here, but I see Renee. It looks like Renee's got a question. So if you're joining and you have a question, it can be really just any question. If it turns into like a my dog question, honestly, I'll probably just make it kind of, a little bit more general, but happy to answer whatever you guys want to know about Nosework, and I can kind of ramble on for half an hour just about everything. So just, I don't know. Love talking about this kind of stuff. So may need to put on my reading glasses here. Renee says, odors used in NACSW trials, are they really harder for the dog? No. No, they're not harder for the dog. Basically, like NACSW odor versus like an AKC odor, the only difference is in concentration. And I train on NACSW odor, and I think, honestly, well, okay, let's back up. It's not whether one is harder or another. It's about odor threshold and the fact that, so let's just talk more about odor threshold than anything else. And what I do tell people is that even if you're deciding to only trial an AKC, still train on NACSW odor, because what I often see is people who train solely on AKC strength, that their dog just, oh, your question is about combo odors. Oh, so I'm rambling about something completely unrelated that you really don't, that you're not even asking about. Got it. Okay. Combo odors. No, combo odors are not harder. No, they're not harder. It's just another, I've not seen, and again, a lot of my dogs were started on cocktails. I don't actually train using cocktails anymore. I don't teach it that way. They were all started on it. I have seen zero difference between any of the odors with any of my dogs, and I think that's pretty consistent. So sorry about that, Renee. Yeah, no, it's not harder at all. Combo odors just basically means putting more than one hide in a Q-tip. More than one hide, more than one type of odor scented Q-tip in one hide is a combo odor. And I would highly recommend training that way. Also, in addition to pure odor. Going back to odor threshold, I do want to mention, because people are like, oh, cliffhanger, I definitely would also train lower strength odor, because I think I see a lot of AKC strength dogs that are trained only on AKC strength. And it seems like they have to have odor hit them over the side of the head for them to respond to it sometimes. And I see dogs like, seriously, that's a strong hide. And because they're trained to only respond to just really, really strong odor. And I personally would prefer a dog that would at least recognize lower strength odor, which, don't forget, it's not just the hide. It's not just the strength of the hide. I want my dog to recognize and respond that there's odor in the area, because even if you have, let's say this is an AKC strength hide and it's over here, right? And let's say, I'm trying to get it in the camera, that it's got 2 drops of oil on it, right? So now if we think about that odor concentration, the odor concentration over here is going to be a lot less. So by the time you get kind of farther away, it's going to be even less than that. If I have a dog that also trains on NACSW strength odor, they're going to respond to it farther away, and I'm going to have more information about the hide than a dog that only works really, really strong hides. So I just have a little bit more information. Anyway, wanted to finish that discussion. Lynn says, hi, thanks for doing this. My dog is working on her last AKC master title interior, but we haven't done any CSW yet. Looking forward to it. Yay, that's awesome. I think you'll enjoy it. You train with combo odors all the time. Even the young dogs seem to have no trouble with them. It's like smelling steak and apple pie cooking at the same time for me. Yeah, I think, it's really easy to kind of underestimate what dogs can do, and they can absolutely do it. I just found out, which is super cool. I took I watched a webinar with Dr. Paula Tiedemann from Texas Tech, and it was also Dr. Lauren DeGrief. She just had a webinar yesterday, and it was on the science around human scent, both living and deceased. And living human odor had identified 1,800 different VOCs. So, fun fact. So my dog whose primary job is looking for live human beings, may encounter 1,800 different VOCs. We compare that to birch anise or clover, where it's one VOC. So dogs are amazing. So the bottom line there is that dogs are incredible, and don't discount that. So let's see if there are anybody has any other questions here. Otherwise, I think I have. Let me just look at. I want to see if there are any questions that we haven't covered yet. Let's see. Let's see. I'm trying to see if we haven't covered anything here. How do we balance? I think we've actually covered a lot of them. Let's see. Actually, let's see. There is a question here that says, I have a high drive, very fast dog. Is there a way, or should I even worry about to slow her down a bit? I fear she moves so fast, it's changing the airflow, and we're missing the hides. We're at NW2 3 level now. She starts to get frustrated and speeds up even more, so I pull her in, calm her down, and restart her. This helps. It's like she's working in a field, not a room. We've been trying to conquer threshold hides. But after that, it's a free-for-all. That's actually a really great question. So when we kind of look at that was in the previous, I'm just answering the question. Having a very fast dog, and should you slow them down? There are things you can do to slow them down. So first of all, if we talk about what speeds up the dog, and that's usually arousal. And so from there, I would start also making sure you understand the difference between arousal and drive, because arousal speeds up the dog. Frustration speeds up the dog because frustration creates arousal. And drive helps the dog to focus in on the odor. And you have to know the difference between the arousal and the drive part, because if you don't have enough drive, arousal is just going to get your dog running around in circles. Now, that said, let's say you have a dog with plenty of drive and the dog also has a lot of arousal. I have one of those. Her name is Powder. You will also see at a trial, if you go and you volunteer at a summit trial and I'm there with Powder, what you'll find is that it's rare for me to run her off leash. And sometimes, I see people, they take their dogs off because maybe the search area is a little complicated or something like that, and they're worried about the line handling. And my answer to that is get better at line handling, because it's really hard to run a dog off leash in high arousal and get all the hides. Because unless the dog is highly, highly fluent, and I have to tell you, NW2 and NW3 dogs are not highly fluent. So even with a dog who is Powder is summit level 5-time titled, 4 of those were high in trial. 1 of those was second overall. She is a fluent dog. I like to have the line there because I need to, and it's not that I'm trying to slow her down. It's just that it puts a little bit of a stopper on it, because once a dog starts to run, they pick up speed and they're going to be less effective. That's going to make them more frustrated. Then you're more likely to have either false alerts, mistides, or whatever. I also find that one of the things that I can do, again, I don't try to physically slow her down, is that when I release her to find another hide, what I do is I call it adding drag to the line. And I'm going to just demo this with I have a USB cord. That's all I have around here. So apologies. This is all I have. So instead of, I'm not going to hold tight. If I hold tight, I'm pulling back on the line. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to add a little bit of drag. I'm just going to feel the line a little bit more as my dog starts to take the line. And when I do that, it just get a little hesitation there. And it actually does help. And I do that as the dog starts to take the line back out again after I release them for another hide. So one of the things I would be doing is running the dog on leash. Another thing I'd be doing is adding a little bit of drag on the line as the dog starts to look for another hide. The other thing I would be doing is probably slow treats at, really, really quiet reinforcement. So if you watch me and how I reinforce powder in a trial, it's good girl. That was really good. That was really good. Low voice, keeping those cookies slow is a really good way to address some of their arousal. The other thing I'll be doing is working a lot of single head searches, because you want to build fluency and you want to do it in a way that your dog is not reinforced for leaving one hide by finding another one. Like, yeah, you're doing multiple hides in a trial. Great. It doesn't mean that you have to always trial that way. So in that type of situation, and so that is one situation. So if you want to get those threshold hides, powder has killer threshold hides, right? Absolutely killer threshold hides. And she did them by having single hide searches, because if she blew her threshold, there were no other opportunities for reinforcement. So you get those killer thresholds by setting one hide, not one hide at the threshold, and then we go off and find more hides, right? So that can be really helpful. Once your dog gets a lot more advanced, I do a lot of close proximity pairs. I change her expectation. Hide placement is really powerful. If anybody ever tells you that hide placement doesn't matter or airflow doesn't matter, that your dog's going to find it anyway, it means they don't get it, and they don't understand airflow, and they don't understand really how a dog learns when it comes to searching. So if anybody says that to you, just kind of like, and move on. So I would do that also through hide placement. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions here. It's funny, Lynn, you asked about, I didn't even see this question. My Sheltie loves Nosework, but tends to blow past threshold hides all the time. I'm working with my coach on that, doing lots of them, but it's still an issue for her. That's really funny. It's I didn't even see that when I was answering the question. But yeah, it's literally one hide, and do it in a small room, not a big, huge search area. What I don't do in trying to teach threshold hides, I don't hold the dog at the threshold. I see a lot of people there, they're like holding their dog and they're just waiting for their dog to find it. They're just going to hold their dog. That's not training. That's management, right? That's the dog only has 4 feet. Yeah, they're going to find it. What are they learning? Nothing, right? So you have to think when you set a hide, just in general, what are you reinforcing? Actually, that goes for training no matter what you're doing. But when you set a hide, what searching behaviors are you reinforcing? And when you handle, what searching behaviors are you reinforcing, right? All of these things are, they all need to kind of go into they all go into the equation and should all go into your training decisions. All right. Renee says, are there ever distractions in blank container searches? I would not expect them at the NW3 level. Not at the NW3 level. I would definitely not expect that. But at Elite, sure. At Summit, sure. You know, we could have containers and interiors, or containers and then there's something else. And you can absolutely have areas where there's distractions and no odor. So still good to, definitely good to train when you start thinking Elite or Summit. Let's see. Do you have any special recommendations? Let's see. Getting older. Right. Let's see. Do you have any special recommendations for a dog who has been through an in-person class where the trainer shows them the hide location if they can't find it? Or should I just slowly do the NW101 homework? I'm sorry. Did you see that sigh? I'm really sorry. That was probably a really obvious. It's one of those things where I think that poker face kind of deal just didn't enact like enough. I'm like, oh, dude. Guys, if the dog can't find the hide, don't show the dog the hide, please. This is in general. Just no. Yeah. No. The answer is no. Don't show the hide. Just don't. It's really bad training. And it's bad for your training. It's like, okay, here. You failed. Here's your cookie anyway, and this is where the hide was. Well, what does the dog actually learn? The dogs learn nothing. Feeding the dog at the hide when they don't find the hide, the only thing that accomplishes is it makes a handler feel better. That's it. And that goes for at the end of a trial, at the end of a search or whatever, because I know at some of the lower levels you're allowed to do that. I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't. At most, it's teaching your dog that if in doubt, look to mom or dad. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. That's a hard no for me. Let's see. Christine says, my dog's alert to look back and comes to me to be paid. I do pay her at the hide. She does not have a freeze at the hide, and she does not go ahead to find another hide until okay. And your question is, will not having a freeze hinder us as we go to, oh, no, you don't need a freeze. You don't need a trained final response. Look back's fine. I would say as long as you can read your dog. A freeze alert. I did train a freeze on containers with powder. And I did that because even though I trained her the same way as all my other dogs in containers, she started to go nuclear on them. And that was embarrassing because, I don't need her trashing the search area. So I taught her nose freeze because I had to replace the behavior that she was giving with a new behavior. And that's what the train final response was for her. But in the sport competition nose work here in the United States, especially, you do not need a trained final response. You need to be able to call alert at the right time. And that requires you to read the dog. Now, the problem is if you can't read your dog and your dog gives you an alert behavior, you can get so wedded to that alert behavior that you call alert at the wrong time. And that's either called a false alert or fringe alert, depending, right? And the other problem is if you teach the dog a behavior, and if you don't do it in a way that you're emphasizing the sourcing, first and foremost, and you teach your dog the alert behavior, what you can get is a dog, when they're frustrated, they start to throw that alert behavior. So for instance, let's say the dog gets into an odor pool, and let's say through handling, because you're like, oh, my dog's interested in odor, because there is odor there. It's an odor pool. And you square up on the dog, or you do a full frontal, you're facing the dog, you're crowding the dog, you're close to the dog. What you're doing is or you step into the dog, right? All of these things are actually encouraging your dog to just throw the alert and give you the freeze. This is a really good way to get a no in a trial, because what you're doing is you're actually prompting that. So kind of keep that in mind. that's actually a downfall of that, because as the dog's like, oh, well, I guess you're interested in this area, and they start to give you the behavior, because it is really, really easy to train a train final response badly. It's hard to train a train final response well and maintain it, because once you have a train final response, you have to maintain it. There are situations where I encourage people to train a train final response. And a lot of times that has to do if I feel like the dog is destructive. But I also generally discourage it unless the dog's got enough drive to maintain it. Because it's one thing to have a TFR in containers, right? Or on basic hides. But once those hides get hard, the dog has to have the drive to sustain all of that sourcing and then give you the behavior precisely and accurately. And, so I would highly, highly, highly discourage putting a TFR on a dog unless you have enough drive and you know how to maintain it. And there are situations where I'm like, that dog's destructive, you need to put a TFR on the dog, because I feel like it's gotten kind of to the point where I'm like, you're going to start getting faults, and beyond getting faults, you could be causing damage. So it's not about the fault, it's actually about the damage. And the fact that when we trial, we're granted access to a location that we don't normally get access to, or maybe we're searching vehicles in somebody's personal vehicle. So it's not about the fault, it's actually about the damage. I care about the damage. So if I feel like your dog could be causing damage, you have to train something alternatively to the paw, which is usually when I see that's usually what's causing the damage. And that's when I would suggest to somebody to have a TFR, but I don't necessarily tell, like, I would say 90%, 95% of teams don't need it. And it actually becomes a crutch, because then a lot of times people are waiting for the train final response. So that's my soapbox on train final responses in the sport of nosework. Now, if you're doing something other than nosework, a different application, yes, you must have a train final response. And there's a whole lot of other reasons for that. I have a train final response with Prize, right? Because, when she goes off in the woods, and we could be in the middle of the night, we're searching in the middle of the night or daytime. I don't see her. She's off looking for people. And she finds somebody, she's got to come back and tell me. And that's a train final response. She runs back, lays down, right? I know she's found the person because she's not at the end of a leash. That was spam. Sorry, guys. So there are definite reasons outside of the sport of nosework where you must have a train final response, and it must be bulletproof. Making a TFR bulletproof is hard. It's hard to do it right. It takes a lot of work. It's a ton of work. I actually just posted a video recently on my personal page. I was doing proofing Prize's TFR for her live find. And I literally climbed up on scaffolding and cued her on her TFR word to really proof the fact that I need her. That was to challenge her to climb all the way up the scaffolding and then lay down to push her fluency. And I mean, you got to do stuff like that. So anyway, that is my long soapbox on TFRs. Wow, that would keep us going for a while. Let's see. Bomb detection. Yeah, you definitely need a TFR for bombs. Yeah. And you don't want dogs